the sound of distant drums far away, far away. And if they call for me to come, then I must go, and you must stay. So marry, marry me, let's not wait. Let's share all the time we can before it's too late. Love me now, for now is all the time there may be. If you love me, marry, marry, marry me. I hear the sound of bugles blow far away, far away. And if they call, then I must go across the sea, so wild and gray. So marry, marry me, let's not wait. For the distant drums might change our wedding day. Love me now, for now is all the time there may be. If you love me, marry, marry, marry me.
Thank you, Jim Reeves. Today we have met to honour the life of Mr. Elvin John William Woods, to express our thanks for his life, to say goodbye to him, and to support each other in our loss. The Elvin Woods that I knew would not have wanted a great big fuss made at his farewell. I think he would have said, "Get on with it, Spud. Make it short and sweet. Don't go on too long." But tell my family and friends to move on and to make the most of their time. Elvin wouldn't want you to be sad, but he would be so thankful that you good people here today meant so much to him. You will all have and hold dear many special memories of this special man, and those memories will stay with you forever. We will always treasure his lasting legacy, his cheeky smile, his quick wit. He was a happy soul. Nothing can now detract from all that you have shared with Elvin. Nothing can now affect the happiness and the great depth of experience that he himself knew. The past, with all its meaning, is sacred. It is also secure. And your love for Elvin and his love for you, his family and friends, can never be altered by time or by circumstance. Officially, it's good afternoon to you all, and on behalf of his family, I welcome you as you have gathered to pay your respects to Elvin. I also welcome the people out there in streaming land today who are tuned in, who can't be with us today for lots of reasons, but we know that you are indeed with the family and send your very best, and the family would appreciate you looking in today and taking in the service as well. The service will take place in the chapel, and then we will process to the Burney Lawn Cemetery for a short interment, and after that service of the day is finished, you're all invited to come back here and to share in the afternoon tea and a good old chinwag with each other. Those of you who perhaps don't want to brave the trip across the way there, you are more than welcome to stop here until the family returns, so I'll leave that up to you. But I think the weather's going to be pretty kind to us. All the rain we've had is gone, somebody told me, so let's hope. The family have also asked me to thank you for this great attendance here today, to assure you of the great comfort it gives them to know that Elvin was so loved and so respected. I had the pleasure of working with the man for many years at AW. I'll rephrase that. We were employed by the same company for many years at AWPM, but no, we shared a laugh or two over those years, let me tell you. As I sat with the family the other day, I learned that Elvin John and William Woods, I didn't know he had all those names. Excuse me, he was born at Nurse Smith's house in Wynyard on the 23rd of the 1st, 1935, to Gordon and Jean. He was the loved and loving husband of Monica, deceased, his children, Cheryl, Stephen and Diane. He was the loving pop of grandchildren, Nathan, Alicia, Rodney and Samantha, and grandfather of great-grandchildren, Amelia, Kobe and Mercy. The loved and loving brother of Gordon, deceased, Kevin, Alexander, deceased, Shirley, Harold, Gwenda, Beryl, deceased, and Donald, deceased. So a rather large family there. Elvin went to school sometimes. He quite often knocked off at dinner time and disappeared for the rest of the afternoon, and I'm told that he hid in the pine trees until the train came past that took the kids to and fro from the Burney High School, and he knew then it was time to knock off. If he went home early, he might have got into strife. So he waited for the train. You're very clever. But anyway, he left school, we believe, when he was 14 years of age. But in that time, he had to go to hospital for to be treated for a bout of pneumonia. And he always said that he liked it much better in hospital with pneumonia than he did going to school. Yeah, he didn't like it at all, yeah. But even when he was 10 years old, he was taught how to get on the other end of a crosscut saw and cut a tree down. Now, every now and then his old dad would have to come round the tree to see if Elvin was actually leaning on the saw or working it. But he was only 10 years old, and that was a big job for a 10-year-old, as you people who've used a crosscut would know. When he finally did sever ties with the education department, well, they might have severed ties with him, I'm not quite sure about that. But he went to the plywood mill in Somerset where his father worked, and he was a peeler. A big blade dug into the log, and as the log turned, this great sheet of ply would come off. But he said it was a very, very dusty job, and he didn't like it much, and he finally got himself a job at AWPM, but he did a few other things in the meantime. He did national service, and he liked to be there in the winter time because the food wasn't fly blown in the winter time. Any Nashos here today? No, I won't put you off your afternoon tea. But he finally got himself a job at AWPM, and he started there in the reel bay. So really, he went from a peeler to a reeler, did he not? And he worked alongside my father, who was there for many years as well, and I was just next door. And yeah, as I said earlier, we put a lot of time in together. He then became a painter. He got a job in the painter's shop, and he'd done a bit of painting around the place anyway, and he did actually paint the nurses' home in Wynyard. I don't know whether the nurses were there or not when he was plying the brush, but it would have been a pretty big job for him. He was employed as a painter for over 30 years at AWPM, so he knew how to wield the brush. There was another interest in his life by the name of Miss Monica Radford, and he met Monica at an Atone Sports Day, because our man, he used to like to do a bit of chopping. It wasn't competitive chopping, it was non-competitive, and I believe that Monica was there that day, and later on worked at AWPM anyway, so he kept track of her there for sure. When he was also a little boy, he lived in proximity to the golf course at Wynyard, and if a stray golf ball came over to where he was, probably fishing on the side of the river, he'd put his foot on it and he'd stand there, and the golfer would come, "Have you seen a golf?" No. And later on, of course, he'd dig it out and take it back to the club and resell it. He was an entrepreneur, all right, no doubt about that. He loved shooting, he loved ferreting, he loved the outdoors. He was happy. Someone told me a while ago he was happiest when he was in a bush hut by the side of the lake with a fishing rod in his hand, or chasing roos or whatever. And he had a great love of spaniel dogs and beagle, foxhound cross. He had the dogs, the hunting dogs, and rabbits were a pretty plentiful item in those days, and he used to trap rabbits, and when he got quite a few, he would sell them to the old Wynyard Hospital. I don't reckon you'd be allowed to do that these days if you bowled up with a sugar bag full of rabbits. They had a milking cow, and he used to milk the cow, and he used to love turning the nozzle towards him for nice warm milk, as some of you would have done. They kept a few chooks, and they always had a roast chook for Sunday dinner, and that was a special day to look forward to. His mother taught him to knit, and he was a good knitter, and he could turn the heel on a sock or anything. Yes, he was very, very good, and he must have had a fair bit of patience to do that. When he was, I'll just get back quickly to National Service, when he ironed his shirts, he only ever ironed the collar, because he said when you put everything else on, that's the only thing you ever see. So, up here for thinking, no doubt about that. But him and a few of his mates decided, they had a weekend off and decided to club in and get a taxi to come back home. Would have cost a few dollars, I suppose, even in those days. But then they caught the train back again. Now, the taxi got them home very quickly, but it took the train a fair while to get them back again. So the further and the most time they could spend away from the place, as I said, up here for thinking. He played football for Atone as a ruckman in his earlier days, but he finished as a 25-year-old. Now, if you're a ruckman, you're probably only starting out to get somewhere near your prime at 25, but he finished at 25 years of age. He was an athletic sort of a bloke, the family tell me, and he played also played cricket for Somerset as a fast bowler. And a man by the name of George Hall, was his captain and coach. I don't know whether any of you today would remember George, but he was captain and coach. And as I said earlier, he was a non-competitive chopper. He liked to chop, but non-competitive. He got a laugh out of Are You Being Served?, the English comedies, On the Buses, and a show called Grace and Favour. Now, I won't go any further with that, but I learned a couple of things about that particular show that I won't pass on today, but it was rather funny. He was a fisherman of note. In fact, he wasn't a fisherman, he was an angler. He was a step above your ordinary old fisherman. And he used to like to fish Lake Burbury, in the boat at Lake Burbury. Yeah, spent many happy hours down there. He had a property up Minna Road and the Iron Mine Road, not Minna Road, the Iron Mine Road, and he ran a few beef cattle, about 15 beef cattle up there, and took great delight in his cattle. The ferns used to grow prolifically, so he was a dab hand with a fern hook and double-handed, no doubt, as I've seen some of them do, showing off. He was a good provider. The family stressed this, that he was just a wonderful provider. Him and Mum, you couldn't fault either of them the way they looked after the kids, and quite often they went without themselves to make sure that the family had whatever they needed, and quite often he would spend money on the family that he probably should have been spending on him and Mum, but yeah, it all went to a good cause, they said. It went to the kids. So he used to drive a little fawn Austin A30, and some of you here today would have driven a little baby Austin. He tried to drive it up the Stowport Hill not long after he got it, and that was a gravel road, and there wasn't much traction in the rear end of the Austin A30, but I think they made it eventually, but it used to slip when it was gravel. And then later on, him and a few of his mates hired an Austin A40, a step up there, to go to Hobart. And when they got back, they did something naughty. They turned back the odometer. And the fellow that they hired the car off thought that they hadn't gone very, very far at all, perhaps to Devonport and back. Yeah, so they got away with that, I believe. Then he went into motorbikes. He had a motorbike, and there were 3 or 4 young fellas in the area at the same time with motorbikes. Viv Voss, Speed Bonnie, Digger Green, and they all had these motorbikes. Can you imagine 4 young fellas with motorbikes? They wouldn't have ever seen a speed limit sign, I'll bet. Yeah, but they would have had very good times together and great bonding sessions. They were married in 1960 in the Church of England at Burney, and they turned up for the wedding, and the minister thought that they were just there for a rehearsal. So he had to do a bit of a quick turnaround and get all his paperwork together and all the rest of it. Yeah, everybody else knew it was a wedding, but the minister, apparently. They had the reception at the Stowport Hall, and nobody was able to get the keg, to bring a keg of beer up there. And they couldn't find anyone at Stowport to go back down to Burney to pick up a keg of beer. So it might have been a pretty dry sort of an argument at that particular reception. We don't know. But anyway, they were going, I believe they were going to Hobart for the first night of their honeymoon. Afterwards they were travelling to Hobart, but they only made it to Toby Lee's pub in Elizabethtown. Now that's a pretty good stop-off point, and you don't need much of an excuse, or you didn't, to drop into Toby Lee's pub. It was a regular thing on your way to the lakes, also on the way home from the lakes. Yeah, but anyway, they managed, and a lot of incidents in his life and a lot of funny stories. No doubt more will be told around the coffee cup a little bit later on. He was a great man for his community service. He had to be busy. He had to be helping someone else. He had to be doing something for someone. He was a renowned pruner, a tree pruner, a garden pruner. I think the steel chainsaw was a very handy weapon. And if Mum looked out the window and saw Elvin with a chainsaw heading up the side, she tried to cut him off at the boundary before he chopped down all the flowers and everything else that were of value. He didn't make any excuses. He just started her up and away he went. Well, I suppose most of them grew again. He was a man to, when the family went out for functions, he was a man to sneak up quietly to the counter, to the cashier, and pay in advance for everybody. He was generous, a very generous man. There's no doubt about it. And as I said earlier, we had a lot of laughs at the paper mill, but everybody thought very, very highly of this man, and I most certainly did. And he was a mentor to me when I started there at the ripe old age of 15 years, and he was one of the men that looked after me and got me through and stamped out all the stirring and that sort of stuff, which I've carried ever since. So thank you, Elvin, for what you did for me in early days. I believe that Nathan and Alicia have some little story, a little tribute to share with us, and I'll now call on them to come forward and to pay their tribute to this great man. Thank you so much. Grandchildren Nathan and Alicia.
So I'll just say a few quick things and then I've got a poem to say as well. So last week we lost our pop. He was my hero. I honestly don't know how life is going to be without you in it. I miss you so much. The only thing that makes me happy about all this is that you're at peace now and with Nan again, the one and only love of your life. I'll miss your smile, your cheeky remarks, and your laugh. You're one of a kind, and so proud to be your granddaughter, and blessed to have you in my life. Rest in peace, Pop, until we meet again. So this poem is called Come With Me by Rhonda Braswell. God saw you getting tired, and a cure was not to be, so he put his arms around you and whispered, come with me. With tearful eyes we watched you suffer and saw you fade away. Although we love you dearly, we could not make you stay. Our golden heart stopped beating, hard-working hands at rest. God broke our hearts to prove he only takes the best. It's lonesome here without you. We miss you more each day. Life doesn't seem the same since you've gone away. When days are sad and lonely and everything goes wrong, we seem to hear you whisper, cheer up and carry on. Each time we see your picture, you seem to smile and say, don't cry, I'm in God's keeping. We'll meet again someday. You never said I'm leaving. You never said goodbye. You were gone before we knew it, and only God knew why. A million times we needed you, a million times we cried. If love alone could have saved you, you would have never died. In life we loved you dearly, in death we love you still. In our hearts you hold a place that no one could ever fill. It broke our hearts to lose you, but you didn't go alone, for part of us went with you the day God took you home. We love you, Pop.
Whether you call him Pop, Dad, brother, husband, or just mate, everyone here would agree he was a much loved and respected father figure to all. I looked up to him and respected and admired his generosity, strength, resilience, loyalty, and his willingness to always lend a helping hand and never expecting or wanting anything in return. Early memories of you, Pop, include terrifying fastball deliveries at Christmas Day matches when I was younger, taking the Land Rover he had out on summer days to get a load of wood. We'd go up the steepest hills and I'd get out and walk, and he'd just look at me and smile as he, with a big grin on his face, he always loved to push the limits. Countless fishing trips to Burberry that will forever be in my fondest memories, even though we didn't do that much catching. It was always a great laugh. You were always willing to give a hand and never wanted to be made a fuss of. I remember the day not long after Amelia, my daughter, was born. I got a phone call from work from my wife Amanda to say there was a strange man mowing our lawns. You were there and they were a bit long and just decided that you would do them. This would become a current occurrence over the next couple of years. You would never take anything for them, not even a drink. You were the best father figure a boy could have asked for, and one day I hope my son looks up to me and respects me as much as I do you. I will forever hold dear in my heart the last beer we shared together at Easter and wish I had more time with you. I love you, Pop. I know you're up there smiling down at us with Nan at your side. Goodbye, my friend, best man, Pop, and the best drinking buddy anyone could ask for. I'll miss you. That's it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alicia and Nathan. And yeah, I'm sure that Elvin would have loved that, as we all did. And I forgot to mention a while ago about the man's great threshold to pain. I think it was down in the Iron Mine Road area one day. He was cutting a bit of wood while Stephen and a mate were fishing in the Emu River, and somehow or another Elvin managed to get a rather large spike of timber right through his arm. So he broke that off and he sang out to Stephen a couple of times. And Stephen said, "Oh, I can hear someone singing out, but they wouldn't be wanting us." But eventually the penny dropped and he went up, and here was the man with still this great lump of wood sticking out of his arm. So he hopped in was it the Land Rover? He hopped in, I think it was the Land Rover, hopped in that and drove himself down to hospital, got it extracted all the way. Now, wouldn't that have been, yeah, it's hard to imagine. My word it is. He was a tough old so-and-so. Just before we look at some family photos, I think he would have said this: "Remember me with a smile, now my life on earth is done. My dreams have all been fulfilled and a new life has begun. Remember me with a smile when grief may cause you to weep. One day we will laugh once again when our next meeting we keep. Let's be thankful we shared, precious love. Keep the memories warm for a while. Let them bring peace to your hearts. And remember me with a smile." And a lot of people here today will remember Elvin Woods with a big, big smile. We're now about to go back in time in Elvin's life per virtue of some treasured family photos and a bit of Elvin's favourite music behind the scenes. Thank you.
When you ask how I've been here without you, I like to say I've been fine, and I do. But we both know the truth is hard to come by. And if I told the truth, that's not quite true. Some days a diamond, some days a stone. Sometimes a hard times won't leave me alone. Sometimes a cold wind blows a chill in my bones. Some days a diamond, some days a stone. Now the face that I see in my mirror, more and more is a stranger to me. More and more I can see there's a danger in becoming what I never thought I'd be. Some days a diamond, some days a stone. Sometimes a hard time won't leave me alone. Sometimes a cold wind blows a chill in my bones. Some days a diamond, some days a stone. Some days a diamond, some days a stone. Sometimes a hard times won't leave me alone. But sometimes a cold wind blows a chill in my bones. Some days a diamond, some days a stone. Some days a diamond, some days a stone. Sometimes a hard time won't leave me alone.
Some days are diamonds. I did notice during the photographic demonstration that none of you have changed a bit. My friends, we are grateful for Elvin's life and for everything that his life has meant to us. We are glad that he lived and that he shared his life with us. We will always be thankful that we saw his face, we saw his smile, and we felt his touch. We will always cherish the memory of his words, his deeds, and his loving, caring personality. He never looked for praises. He was never one to boast. He just went on quietly working for the ones that he loved the most. His dreams were seldom spoken. His wants were very few. And most of the time his worries went unspoken too. He was there, a firm foundation through all our storms of life, a sturdy hand to hold on to in times of stress and strife. That was our Elvin, And my friends, that brings us to a close of our chapel service this afternoon, and we invite you all to follow the hearse over to the graveside where we will be saying our final farewell to our good friend. Could I invite you now all to stand, please?
It must have been cold there in my shadow to never have sunlight on your face. You were content to let me shine, that's your way. You always walked a step behind. So I was the one with all the glory, while you were the one with all the strength. A beautiful face without a name for so long. A beautiful smile to hide the pain. Did you ever know that you're my hero? And everything I would like to be. I can fly higher than an eagle. You are the wind beneath my wings. It might have appeared to go unnoticed, but I've got it all here in my heart. I want you to know I know the truth.